Welcome, everyone, to the Meaningful Hearts Podcast, where we discuss the everyday questions that make us or break us if we let them. With your hosts, Drew and Daniela. Take our hands and let's walk this journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into the past decade of our lives. Intro music. Boom. Yes. I am turning 39 years old. I almost said 29. Daniela is turning how old?
29.
29. So she's at the cusp of 30. I'm at the cusp of 40. And instead of waiting till 40 or still waiting till 30 to really recap, I figured we would dive in and say, kind of sum up what we did in the past decade. Some of the lessons that we learned. I know I learned some. How about you?
Yeah, I definitely learned some lessons. I would say some of my biggest life lessons have come in my 20s.
Yeah. And I could sum up 20s and 30s. She can only sum up 20s. I leveled up twice. I still don't know shit. Look at that.
That's not true.
She's just patting me on the back. No. In all honesty, though, I mean, there's so much growth that happens in your 20s. They always say, you know, I remember growing up, especially me, being, you know, heading into my 20s. That 20s like your discovery phase, like, you know, a lot of swinging and a lot of misses and a lot of stuff that happens. And then you get it right by the time you're 30. But as I hit 30 and as I look back, I knew that was complete and utter bullshit and terrible advice. And Daniela, take it away. Tell us what you've learned in your 20s.
I think I've learned a lot about myself and who I am as a person. And I've definitely learned about relationships. I don't know. I've learned a lot of things in my 20s, but you know, you were saying that for you, it wasn't like that as far as like, you thought it was a lot of bullshit that you learned about yourself in your 20s, but it wasn't bullshit for me because in my 20s, I did learn all the things. Granted, I also feel like I'm a little older than actually being in my 20s.
I'm not saying that my 20s was bullshit. I'm saying that the advice given to me going into my 20s was, you know, basically you could fuck around for the next 10 years. 30 is when you have to get serious. And when I hit 30 and I've made a lot of mistakes. I did learn in my 20s, but I'm like, holy shit, if I would have taken this a lot more serious than I did, you know, going into 30, I would have probably I think I would have been in a different place now. It makes me wonder, but that was like the understanding. It's like, oh yeah, you're going to make a lot of mistakes and you're going to just make as many as you want. And that's how you learn. But in reality, it's like, you need to make every year count. And I think a lot of people in my generation, you know, 10 years ahead, were given that information and it was terrible information. It was terrible advice. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand it, but I guess like you and I, like our experiences are different.
Well, yeah, that's why you're ahead of where you are in your 20s. And I'm like that point in my late 30s. That's what I'm trying to say, that different generations, definitely the advice has shifted. You grew up in the age of information. When you were hitting 18, the internet was really, really vibrant. There's a lot of stuff, right? A lot of books that are released. I mean, YouTube, very, very much a presence. You know, all these different avenues there that were right in your face. Facebook, social media, things like that. That's all I'm saying, that in essence, that wasn't really there. It was more, you had to seek the information a lot harder, maybe in book form. But nevertheless, I mean, I think the lessons I did learn in my 20s were pretty pretty impressive. I mean, we're pretty good. I'm given where I've came from to get to where I am now. But I think my 30s was the real, like, I caught my real groove in my 30s.
So what are some of the things that you learned?
Well, I don't want to overstep what you said. You said that you learned some things first. So you want to sum up 20s and then I'll sum up 30s? You want to do it that way?
Sure. I definitely learned a lot about how to value myself. I think that was the biggest one. I think in my early 20s, I was pretty lost as far as, like, I guess, romance and love. I've mentioned before that I had been in abusive relationships. And I think a big part of that was because I didn't know what love meant. I didn't know how to love myself, or at least the understanding that I had of love wasn't healthy. I think that was the biggest lesson that I learned in my 20s, is how to love myself more, how to value myself more.
That's a pretty good one. And I think you doing a great job in self-love first. I think that's meeting you at the point where you have learned those lessons, and getting to be the person that I love the most now is amazing. And I think in a lot of ways I learned a lot of things as far as relationships are concerned, because my whole 20s was with pretty much one person, and into my 30s even, and then basically getting a rebirth, and then learning a lot of the mistakes that I made, and immaturity mixed with relationships, and just knowing what I want and what I don't want in my life. It was a pretty long journey, coming into the latter part of my 30s, and really discovering and being solid on it, and really sticking to my guns on what I believe. And then when we met, it was just simple. It was simple because it's just knowing what you want is really, that clarity is just, I mean, it's priceless. Trying to add the same sort of clarity in my career as well is something that I'm also honing in on, which was a long time coming. I made a lot of mistakes and I made a lot of bad choices, but I also didn't have necessarily the best guidance. So I just kept swinging. I mean, I had some good people around me that gave me some advice, but I wasn't ready to hear it. I don't think, you're like, I'm just doing this right now. But learning how to get out of your own way and be able to grasp onto things, and notice that nothing is straight. Sometimes you have to deviate and you have to go the longer route. There's no shortcuts. These are things I had to learn later on in my life. But I think summing up at the end of my 30s and going into my 40s, I'm up for a pretty powerful 11 years ahead of me, that are going to be pivotal. That's what I think. I mean, your 30s are probably going to be fucking supercharged.
Well, I mean, I have you, which is awesome.
Yeah.
A lot of the things that I'm learning now are because of things that you've introduced me to, and how we're trying to grow as a couple, as business partners, and just as partners in general, whether it's romantic or friendship wise. A lot of the things that I'm learning and we're working on, this podcast being one of them, trying to figure out how we can help people, how we can reach the hearts, the meaningful hearts. I think that's also part of what I've learned in my late 20s. I mean, I've always had, maybe not always, but I think through my experiences, something else that I learned is, if I can help somebody not feel, or at least feel supported in the ways that I remember feeling, that's why I went into the profession that I did. And it just so happened that when you and I started dating and I started listening to your podcast, one of the things that really stuck out to me was, your signature motto saying, if I could help one person, then it'll all be worth it. Kind of figuring, how do we add more value? How do we reach more people? How do we help people feel understood, feel heard? That's definitely been a big part of my late 20s. And looking ahead into my 30s, looking for ways to help and add more value.
Well, I could say the same. I mean, I'm pretty sure of myself in a lot of aspects, but meeting you helped solidify and reinforce a lot of things that I do today. You know, validation is always important from people that you respect and admire and have the intellect and understanding, right? You listening to this podcast, I believe me, I did not make her listen to this podcast. I told her about it. It was a topic of conversation. Listen, it looks great, but it could have been complete shit. And coming from a psychotherapist, somebody who actually, speaks to people and helps guide them on their journeys. I'm out here, preaching. I could have been saying some really off the wall stuff, and she could have been like, "Wow, that's great. Yeah, that's cool," and nodded her head, but never brought it up again. And next thing you know, I turn around and she's literally listened to every single episode and has pages upon pages of notes. She even gave me a gift, a heart with a meaningful heart, insignia on it, with like every episode like folded up with suggestions and information in there. It's beyond amazing and incredible. And now she is, we're equals on this podcast together, meaningful hearts together, bringing to the masses. So I guess in some ways I inspired her to come along for the journey and join the team, and having other people come along with us on this journey. It's a dream come true. It's amazing. So I am better for it. It's changed me in a lot of ways for the better. And I'm also learning a new role, a new part, being a business partner with my significant other, my partner in that way. So us being friends, us being partners in life and in business, and trying to grow it. This next journey ahead is all new to me, but it's super exciting, and I'm looking forward to it. But I have a question for you, Daniela. What would you say to a client that is maybe, they're in their late 30s, they're going into their 40s, and I don't know, they were just maybe just having the blues, or just like, wow, I'm like a flash. I remember I was 20 years old. I felt so young and so like alive, and here I am going into my 40s, and I'm scared. I'm getting old. What would you say to that person?
Well, first I would say that it's understandable whether you're going from your 30s to your 40s or your 20s to your 30s. There's certain, life transitions, certain adjustments, especially depending on how people grew up or how a person grew up. It's okay to be feeling like you're getting old. I think a good chunk of the people, both professionally and personally, that I speak to, when their birthdays come around, it's always like, man, I'm getting old. And me personally, I'm like, I'm not getting old. I'm just getting older. It's a very big difference between old and older. Because older means wiser. Old is like almost signifying that your life is wasting away. So first I'd start by normalizing that, hey, it's okay to feel that way. And then do some self-reflective work. What about the past years do you feel have been good? What accomplishments have you had? And it doesn't necessarily have to be professionally or romantically or anything really big that people really first go to. It could just be like, hey, like, I've been feeling this way for quite some time, and I still managed to get up and get out of bed. Those are still accomplishments. So focusing on things that people have accomplished to help not negate the negative stuff, but to balance out the negative stuff. I would probably start there, and then explore what gives people meaning. Because if that's what you felt like, or that's what you're feeling like now, part of countering that is, or not countering, but how to work with it or through it, is well, what can you do right now to start have meaning to your life? How can you find purpose now versus the purpose that you had in your 20s and your 30s, right? So for me in my 20s, it was about finding myself and loving myself. And now going into my 30s, my purpose is how can I help people on a bigger level? How can I expand? How can I grow exponentially? And approaching that with a client, there's so many different ways, but I think those are like maybe the top three of how I might first go, depending on the relationship that I have with them. So, like, normalizing and really listening, like, wow, like that really sucks. And then exploring what good they've have been able to accomplish and how they can make meaning of their lives now and moving forward.
That's awesome. Did you hear that, folks? That was a free lesson. That was free. That was free. We're going to start charging after this, so you better get your pen and paper, write all this down. What would you say to this date is your greatest accomplishment coming into your 30s? I'm stomping your here.
Well, because each area of my life has had an accomplishment. I wouldn't say that one triumphs the other, but I have a couple.
Yeah, I guess categorize them then.
Yeah. I would say that professionally, my greatest accomplishment is having become a therapist and doing what I love, not just a job that's secure, finding something that I love and that, I don't say, man, I have to go to listen to people's problems all day. I go in with, man, I get to help people today. I get to really listen and be an inspiration for clients or patients and be a support system. So professionally, it'd be that. I would say personally, some of my biggest accomplishments have been being able to give my nephew the gift of life. Our relationship, I would say, is also a really big accomplishment for me. Being able to finally find somebody that understands me on all levels, to know and have learned about myself. I would say that those three are like the biggest accomplishments that I've had in my life so far. What about you? And you can't use our relationship as one. You can't cheat. That's cheating.
It's not cheating. I mean, it's obvious because I already
copycat.
Well, I would say that I didn't take the traditionalist route as far as career wise goes. I'm a salesman by nature, so I mean, it's great to be a salesman. I mean, there's a lot of industries that need sales. I mean, every industry needs sales, right? So I took a little bit of a detour on a specific career path, which I'm still very much proud of. I've collected a lot of knowledge through the years that put me in a position to command, the type of jobs and salaries and opportunities that were brought forth because of all the work that I did in the past. So I've grown without really intention in the sales department, which has also helped me be more outgoing and be able to speak to everyone and be able to just be a little more outgoing. So it's helped me in a lot of ways. So I would say that's one of my greatest accomplishments, is becoming more social and outgoing, and not like a salesman in the sense I manipulate people, but I also got some perspective on what manipulation is and how to reverse engineer that to enrich and add value to every person that I talk to, because I worked side by side with a lot of people that use their powers for bad, and I used understanding that and saying, wow, I was a jerk in the early days because I didn't know any better. I thought it was get as much money as you can and however you can get that done, and that's whatever. I was being stupid and young. But as I got older, I had other friends that were in the sales industry. I had one of my closest friends, and I learned from him how to relationship build. And there's one thing that he said to me that was really, really important. He told me, he goes, you could work for any business, any business and specific industries. I treat my customers like my family and my friends, because and it doesn't matter what my company tells me to do. If it's not ethical or the practices I'm not comfortable with, or at the same time, if my company tries to manipulate my relationships for their gain, and I decide, I'll get a gain in the short term, but in the long run, I'll burn my bridges. If I leave this company tomorrow, they're not going to remember the company. They're going to remember me and my relationship with them. So you walk away from any business or any company that you work for. Remember, you're representing yourself first. That's something I took with me, and I take with great pride. So in that, I have the ability to go into any business or any company that I work for, and I represent myself, and I do what's in the best interests of the customer and the people that I deal with, not the company. I'll fight the company for my customers. I mean, it's just how I do it. But that's just a good lesson. That's one of those things that I learned. And like I said, to wrap it all up in there, as far as career wise, these are big lessons that I learned along the way. So I'm very proud of that. Obviously, my relationship is amazing, and I couldn't ask for more. I would say those are top two for me. And finding this podcast and my ability to make content and write a little more and creativity, something I've always yearned for and longed for, something that I struggled with, trying to figure out where my lane was for creativity. And I'm grateful to be able to create and take the skill sets that I've learned over the years and apply them to creating this beautiful podcast and all the other content that we're going to create going forward. So, yeah, those are things I'm grateful for. Is that a copy? Did I copy you?
Yeah.
That's okay.
No, just with the relationship, but I think that's just happens to be mutual.
Yeah, it's a mutual thing.
It just comes to show that accomplishments can look different for everybody. You know, so many people out there, struggling to find meaning in their jobs or in their careers professionally, oftentimes feel like failures because they're either not satisfied or they've had multiple jobs or whatever the case may be. But here you are saying, okay, yeah, I am one of those people. I have had a lot of job opportunities. I've made some mistakes, but you reframed it for yourself. It was because of that, because of those experiences, that you developed these amazing people skills, and you learned that there is a lot of power in manipulation, but it doesn't have to be such a bad thing. It is a form of manipulation to influence people, but influence people in a good way. Get people to believe in themselves. That's a form of manipulation, but it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Get somebody to open their heart and give more of themselves to better themselves. I think, yeah, if you're going to use manipulation for that and make somebody better, nobody's going to hate you for that. They're going to love you for it.
Yeah. So if there's a person out there that's struggling right now, whether they're thinking about their 20s or their 30s and all the things that they haven't been able to do, it's okay. It's okay to not have those things, because you can always find a way to reframe anything. Tony Robbins says that your worst day can become your best day. And I think that that's very true, because through the worst times of my life of feeling unloved, feeling unworthy in my relationships, I learned that, wow, like I can help people feel supported when they go through these things. I can learn how to love myself, and then I can show others what it means to love themselves. And for you, having had mistakes, having made difficult decisions, really facing yourself, those are pretty hard things, but you've been able to get yourself to a place where you want to add value. And I think that that's where we align. And that's what I would want a listener to take away, is that, we all make mistakes. Everybody's journey is different. We're human beings, and we're looking to add value, and that listen, whether you're 20, 30, 40, making mistakes, it's not about the mistakes that you make, but it's about the relationship that you have with these mistakes and how you feel about yourself. You can get really low on yourself, that's for sure. But at some point, you have to pick yourself up, just like you've been able to do and I've been able to do. We're human beings. We're not aliens. We're not superhumans. So if we can do it, anybody can.
I concur.
Of course you do. Awesome.
Yeah. Don't break your arm patting yourself in the back there. Well, I will sum that up by saying we are all appreciative of where we are and where we're going. And I am grateful for you and everything. And I want all of our listeners to know that we're grateful for you as well. And we are proud of you and your journeys. If you're listening right now, you're in the right place, trying to go somewhere. And we appreciate you. Thank you for listening, everyone. Sure. And have a wonderful night. Bye.